Welcome to all the presenters. It seems that in this session, there is not a speaker from Turkey. We are the host and we are the guest. I hope we will have in a near future an opportunity to say welcome to you physically in a physical conference in Turkey. But for now, we are trying our best what we can do, and I appreciate your participation and contribution to this interesting subject, to each of you. Thank you very much. Stefan, you can be the moderator in this session, I think.
Yes.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So we'll start with the presentation of Beate and Jürgen. Jürgen, du bist jetzt zusammen mit Beate. Okay. Viel Erfolg, Beate. Good luck, Beate. You can share your screen now.
Yeah, I think my presentation will be shared.
Oh, very good. Yes, it's pre-registered. Okay, so you can click on play.
Good afternoon and welcome to this session, Beehive Air Therapy Healing with Bees. Normally I would do this session in probably an hour. Today I've got 12 minutes, so please bear with me. I'll try to wrap it all together. So let's get started. The first mentioning of beehive air therapy was in the 1920s, when a Russian beekeeper noticed the positive effects of beehive air. However, today, beehive air is the least known and least studied product from the beehive, and it is hard to find relevant clinical studies, despite there being so many patented devices commercially available. Beehive air therapy are classed as wellness and not as therapy. And the reason behind that is, up until recently, there were no medical devices available on the market. There's also very little to no scientific or academic literature available on beehive air therapy. Now, Jürgen Schmiedgen, who is a certified organic and apitherapy beekeeper, also happened to be my dad, developed a new beehive air device. And our journey started in 2001 when we met Dr. Stefan Stancasio and we learned about apitherapy, and a whole new world started for us. In 2013, we heard about apitherapy when we went to a apitherapy congress in Passau, and we learned about Api Air, a device developed by Hans Musch. And we bought a couple of devices and we started to treat family, friends, and other people. But my father, being an entrepreneur, I call him a scientist, as well as knowing everything about electronics, he realized quickly that none of the devices were without fault. He then also, we knew that the medical industry wasn't interested in doing any studies on the device because it's not medical. So he set out with some trusted business partners to develop a new device that would become the first medical product or first medical device on the market. It took around 3 years to get to that point, but it has been a fantastic journey to be on. So what does it mean? When you do beehive air therapy professionally, you have to do that slightly different to maybe the way you've done that in the past. If you are a beekeeper and you want to breathe the hive air, then you just open your hive and you breathe the air in your garden, and that's absolutely fine. When you want to treat somebody that you don't know and you don't know their medical condition and you don't know whether they are allergic to anything in the beehive, you can't do that. So you have to comply with some requirements, and one of them is to have a therapy room that's free of bees. Bees are in the hive, they fly out, and the patient is safely sitting inside breathing the air. So just to show you our system that we developed, you've got the inhalation device itself, which is made of medical materials. It's got the shape of the hive, rather large, to really absorb and extract the air from the hive very evenly. You get a patient box, which consists of a medically graded, a heated hose, a mouthpiece as well, or mask, as well as a valve to prevent you from breathing back into the hive. Also, in addition, you get a specifically made hive lid that fits the device perfectly, and it can be adapted to standard hives like Dayton, Standard, as well as others. Also wanted to show you one of our first apitherapy centers. This one is made for 6 beehives. The inside looks like this. So you've got your hives inside, the patient is relaxing, taking their therapy treatment, and you've got a storage cabinet in the back that stores the inhalation devices as well as the individual patient boxes. Here you've got a example of the best use of or capacity use of the therapy center. So for one therapy space, you need 2 hives. One treatment is 30 minutes, so you would have 15 minutes on hive 1, 15 minutes on hive 2, and then you wait another 45 minutes before you use hive 1 again. The reason behind that is the best quality of air for the patient and no detriment for the bees. It's just so they get enough time to refill their hive quality, really. In the Northern Hemisphere, so particularly Germany, where our hives are located, or our treatment takes place, we have about 5 months of warm weather season or bee season, and that's really when we use apitherapy. Beehive air, and it needs to be above 14 degrees. If you live in an area where you have more warm weather than 5 months, then obviously you could do apitherapy beehive air treatment for that time, of course. When you look at the quality management and clinical trials, so as I mentioned earlier, we went through a 3-year process of getting the product medically certified. We have to comply with very specific regulations. So every device gets rigorously tested to ensure that we have the highest quality and meet those high quality standards. These also ensures that we are now medically certified according to the European Medical Device Regulations, Class 2A, and that's across Europe. Recently included Turkey as well as the UK, which is fantastic. Our clinical trial started in 2018. We worked with Professor Dr. Karl Sperr and his team at the Technical University in Dresden, and they looked at the components in the beehive and really looked at what's in the hive and is it safe to use. They looked at different devices and they identified that our device, and they proved that our device is safe and efficient to use for treatment. And that is absolutely fantastic. They identified with the heated medical hose, you ensure that the full amount of hive air that's in the hive will actually reach the patient, not like other hoses, commercially hoses, where because the hose is cold, the beehive air in the hose will sink, meaning that the air will probably not reach, well, around 10% of the air will reach the patient. When the patient then breathes back into the hose, you also build condensation. So, you know, this is really what we wanted to prevent with the new device. Now, having these medical requirements that we have to meet, we also have requirements that for patient treatment, apitherapy or apiary rather, and beekeeping as such. So starting off with the patient treatment, we work with medical professionals, GPs, general practitioners, or naturopath practitioners who do medical assessments. They do a pre-assessment with every single patient, check their medical history, do an allergy test 48 hours before any treatment starts. They provide how many sessions the patient should have and they do a post-assessment afterwards to see has there been any improvement. The staff that's attending the Apitherapy Center is also trained on how to use the devices, and the beekeeper is also trained on how to do organic beekeeping if they don't happen to do that already. When you look at the apiary and beekeeping standards, it is really logical that you would use only organic materials. You use organic beekeeping, you use wooden hives, you would use your own beekeep or your own beeswax cycle, you use hygienic equipment, tools when you do your beekeeping, feeding the bees only with organic food, use a natural varroa treatment, and all of this is to ensure that you prevent harmful substances to negatively influence the benefits and the success of beehive therapy. It's all to do that, you know, the best quality for the patient and the bees. Now, when would you use Apitherapy beehive air treatment? Really for anything to do with respiratory tract conditions, hay fever, asthma, COPD, which is a chronic lung condition, sinuses, bronchitis, headaches, you name it. And the amount of treatment you need really depends on how long you have had these conditions for and how severe they are. Hay fever can be treated within 3 days, 6 sessions, COPD probably a couple of years. So to summarize, why did we come up with a new medical device? Really to improve the patient's experience, have a medical team on site, ensuring that there is an assessment, a standard questionnaire for the medical history of the patient, have a user database set up, get the acceptance from health insurances for this to be a natural and alternative treatment form to be used, and open up opportunities for medical studies, more medical studies on how beehive air really can help humans and animals. This is it from me. I open up now for questions. If you rather want to speak to me directly, then here are my details. You can email me or WhatsApp me, and I'm happy to answer all of your questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, excellent presentation, Beate. Excellent as I expected.
Thank you.
Janos also agrees. Jürgen, very good, very good. We have a few minutes, 2-3 minutes time. So if there are some questions, let's look here. One question I have for Jürgen. Jürgen, in wie viele Länder gibt es schon Bikura? In how many countries the Bikura system is still is now present? Oh, it was my question for him.
Also in Europa in ziemlich vielen Ländern. Wir haben vor 14 Tagen oder 3 Wochen wieder eine große Station in Österreich aufgebaut, eine komplette Therapiestation. Und in Kanada, Australien, Neuseeland, da laufen auch solche Geräte von uns. Yeah.
Okay. So Jürgen just said that his system is already present in most of the European countries, in Canada, in Australia, and New Zealand. Did I translate well, Beate?
Yes, you did. And we recently opened a new therapy center in Austria, a complete
in
therapy
Austria,
center.
yes, a new one. Very, very good.
That's
yes.
a very much growing market, Austria.
Yes. I'd like to say a few words to be more clear. What is the difference between your system and other systems?
Oh.
It was this hose which maintains a normal temperature, like beehive temperature,
Yes.
and the volatiles from the beehive air does not glue on the walls with the condensation.
Yes.
This was the idea.
Absolutely, because it's a medical hose. It's the only one we could find that would be able to distribute the whole amount of air.
The volatiles. Yes.
And then you've got the valve as well, which is really important because it's a in-house developed part of the device. which means you can't breathe back into the hose.
Yes.
That stops you from getting tired, but also it stops you from getting water condensation into the hose
Yes.
and get
Yes.
bacteria in.
Yes, yes. And I'd like to add one more thing. Like you mentioned, Professor Speer from Dresden,
Yes.
and he found over 55, I believe, volatile components from beehive air. And the most important ones in amount came from propolis and beeswax.
Propolis, beeswax, yes.
And not so much from honey as we have expected.
Yeah, some honey aromas, but mostly bee propolis and beeswax. That's correct.
Yes, yes. Janos, you wanted to say?
Yes, you make my presentation now?
No. We are just using a bit the minutes because after this presentation, we have no more other sections. So, but I see also Ali is here and he raised his hand. Maybe he wants to.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you very much for this nice presentation, Betty, and I also appreciate your father's efforts in this field. As you said at the beginning, there is not much clinical studies on api-air practices. So we need more clinical studies.
Yes.
So I was just thinking, if I understand right, your equipment is licensed as a medical equipment.
Yes,
so
correct.
this is something very interesting that makes us easier to have clinical trials on it. So I was just thinking that, you know, it is not easy to have an ethical committee approval for clinical trials on apitherapy every time, but we have in our university a separate committee for traditional and complementary medicine ethical committee.
Okay.
So if my proposal is, if we have some projects, multi-center api-air projects, would it be possible and would you be interested in being part of it?
Very interesting.
You have in many countries centers that use your equipment, and we can prepare a clinical trial, multi-center api-air trial, and we can collect the data from many centers. We have to first have a standardized method of practice protocol for clinical trial, and then if in different centers they follow the same protocol and they collect the outcomes in a center, then it might be possible to have clinical trials on api-air with many patients.
Yes.
So if you think it is a good idea, with our university, we have the traditional and complementary medicine department. We have PhD students.
We should be in contact after this session, I think.
Okay,
yes,
that's good.
Very good, very good. Janos?
Okay, I take the possibility of the few minutes. There are some questions. How the patients take breath? Ganz normal, because the mask is there and the breathing is very normal. So there is no big effort to do this. The allergies. There is a filter for the pollen part inside the machine. Yeah, there is a big filter for the big mesh for the bees, and then a pollen filter. So, and every treatment, I know Jürgen very well, and I know the machine and the system. I was there in Germany several times. There is a test at the beginning, quite normal, short period time of test, because nobody can be sure that is not allergic. So this is an allergic question. Please correct me if I take it wrong.
Yes.
And it has a computer inside. It takes the amount of air as much as necessary.
Yeah, so inside you've got a motor or a control unit that's been used in hospitals for light breathing devices. And it's so quiet, so it doesn't disturb the bees. That's really important. So there is no harmful noise or other
Vibrations.
vibrations. That's the word I was looking for. Yes.
Yes.
But then the general practitioner or naturopath practitioner, they would decide whether a patient needs a allergy test before the session. So if someone has a very bad breathing situation and they hardly can walk in and they really just want to sit down and breathe, it's likely that they don't need a check. They will just get sat there and breathe the air, and already they will start feeling better after a couple of sessions. And then they check, of course, their lung volume before and after.
Okay. Thank you very much, Beate. Thank you, Jürgen, for your first presentation. Excellent presentation. But now, as in any treatment, in any therapy, in any method, we need to have the science. We need to know what is inside this beehive air. And for this, we have Dr. Tiago Guardia de Souza, who will be the next presenter, and he will clarify for us what are these special components in beehive air. Tiago, please, you can share your screen, activate your microphone. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Stefan. I will just start my presentation here. Just one, let me get prepared here.
If the presentation is already open, just click on the share screen.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Can you see now?
Very good. And it's full screen. Perfect. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. Thank you for your interest in this presentation. My name is Tiago Guardia, and today I will be talking about beehive air therapy, from identifying chemical compounds to evidence-based clinical practice. And before I start, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to give this presentation here. For me, it's an honor to be collaborating to the International Apitherapy Congress as a speaker. So thank you very much. And without any other ado, let's get started. This presentation is divided into two parts. First, I will be reviewing a couple of studies on characterizing the chemical compounds of the air of beehives, and then I will highlight the importance of conducting clinical studies for the sake of making this therapy recognized by modern medicine. In this first part, I'll be sharing the main results of two studies that have made some contributions to the understanding of the chemical composition of the air of beehives. The first study is a pilot research I conducted with some colleagues in Brazil in 2017 with the goal of making contributions to the first steps toward characterizing the chemical composition of the air of beehives. The results of this study have been already presented in the Apimondia Congress in 2018, and here I will be reviewing these results with you. And the second study is a more recent research, and in which the article has been published this current year, so 2021. This study is super relevant to the area, in my opinion, because it has not only identified several volatile components of the air of beehives, but also demonstrated the antimicrobial effects of beehives' air, which is a very important step for making this therapy recognized by modern medicine. Regarding the methods of the first study, three different types of instruments that are commonly used in analysis of gases research have been used to collect and store the air of beehives. The first one on the left is a glass air sampling bottle. The second on the right is a glass tube containing activated carbon inside of it. And the third, also in the same picture on the right, is a glass tube containing a material called Tannax inside of it. Both carbon and Tannax absorb the volatile components that can be further extracted by extraction solvents. In total, 7 samples were collected using different approaches. In addition to the storage apparatus, other items that we have considered to develop our method of collecting and storing the air of beehives were: first, collecting time, which is how long the material is exposed to the air of beehive, and then type of extraction solvent for the samples collected in the tubes. Then, 24 hours after the collection phase, the samples of the beehive's air were injected into the gas chromatography and mass spectrometry system in order to be analyzed. There's a lot of technology in these methods, and here I'll only explain the main steps. I will only explain their main steps, aiming to facilitate the understanding of our results. In step 1, the samples are injected in the system. In this case, each sample has a separate run of analysis. In step 2, the sample goes into a column where it is gradually heated and the volatile compounds are kept circulating there by a carrier gas. What happens is that each volatile compound has different chemical properties. So each compound reacts differently to the temperature variation and interacts differently to the column coat. Then in the end, each compound goes out of the system in a specific retention time. And so they get separated based on their chemical properties. In the third step, each compound is broken at the atomic level, which then allows them to be potentially identified. Now I'm going to talk about the results. Here, this figure on the left shows the chromatographic profile of each one of our samples. And as we can see, the sample tube 1, highlighted with a red square, showed a more variety and better isolated compounds, represented by the peaks at the very right portion of the spectrum. So, considering that our first goal in this pilot study was to develop a method for collecting and analyzing the air of beehives, we have that as one of our results that using activated carbon in glass tubes subjected to a constant airflow for 10 minutes and further extraction in dichloromethane was the most effective method for isolating volatile compounds of the beehive's air. The next step was to analyze the chemical profile of each one of the compounds we found in the selected sample. Thus, as a second result of this study, we got the chemical profile of each one of the 15 volatile compounds that we could separate from the beehive's air. And this table in the center shows what the chemical profile of each one of the compounds we found look like. Then, as a final result of our study, for each one of the compounds we have isolated, we got a list of the 25 most likely chemical identification. So different molecules that match the molecular profile of each one of the compounds we have separated. In this slide on the left, there is an example which is showing the 3 most likely identification for the first 4 compounds. And that is the farthest point we went with this pilot study. To recap, first we isolated 15 volatile compounds from the beehive's air, and we end up having a list of 25 most likely identification for each one of those compounds associated with their formulas and chemical categories. Remember that this was a pilot study, and for a complete identification of the compounds, more samples and more random analysis would be required. Then, in this second study, which was developed by researchers from different countries, is a more advanced study and has also a more precise result. This study has evaluated the volatile compounds of the air of the beehive and other products on the other products of the hive, as shown in the left portion of the slide. And as a result, this study has identified 56 volatile compounds, from which 44 had never been reported before. So I consider this study a substantial contribution to the area of the beehive air therapy. Additionally, this study also shows that the air of the hive has antimicrobial properties, which was tested against different types of bacteria that can affect the respiratory system. And based in their results, the authors of this study suggested that the air of the beehives could potentially be used to treat respiratory disorders. However, clinical studies are still necessary to confirm this. And that brings us to the last part of my presentation, which is highlighting the importance of conducting clinical trials to test the efficiency and safety of the beehive air therapy. Translational science is the segment of science which helps translate scientific findings into validated health products or services. And this translation from science to practice in healthcare happens through a series of phases. I won't get in the details of that here, but essentially a basic scientific finding needs to be validated by clinical trials before being approved by health authorities. And promoting clinical practice without an evidence validated by science can lead to potential problems or restrictions to the practice, such as, for example, what happened a few years ago in Germany when health authorities banned the practice of beehive air therapy because there was no scientific proof that technique was effective or even safe. I'm not sure what is the current legal status of the practice around the world at this moment, but the beehive air therapy, as the beehive air therapy becomes more popular, it also will call more attention from the health authorities, which of course will require scientific evidence before acknowledging and thus supporting this therapy. And that's why here I'm highlighting the importance and necessity of conducting a series of clinical trials to evaluate the efficacy and safety of the beehive air therapy. And the idea is to create a group of interested researchers, healthcare practitioners, and apitherapy centers that offer beehive air therapy, so we can organize an international multi-center study on beehive air therapy. If you are interested in participating or contributing to this initiative, please contact me. Let's organize a group, find resources, and make this study happen. So far, in addition to myself, there are already 3 potential collaborators that demonstrated interest in developing this study. There is the Apitherapy Wellness Center in Canada and a partner in Brazil that offer beehive air therapy and are interested in collaborating. Additionally, I also have talks with a researcher who has positive feedback, signaling that we could potentially get support from the Faculty of Medicine, University of Utrecht. The details yet, but until it becomes official, but that is a very promising possibility. Again, if you are interested, let's collaborate and make the beehive air therapy recognized with science.
Okay, thank you very much, Tiago, for your presentation. You can now, yes, thank you very much. Very, very interesting. And I have one question for you before we go to maybe other questions. I saw one information from France they said that in the beehive air may come also volatile substances from the bee larva, because the bee larvae, they communicate with the adults and so on inside the colony. And this substance, methyl palmitate, one of them, has some anti-inflammatory properties. What do you think? Please come on the center of the camera. Yes, to see you better. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I think the composition of the hair varies depending on, I think, many factors. For example, the temperature of the environment, time of the year, the plants around the beehive therapy center. And the few studies that I have looked at have found different compositions of the air. One of the informations that have surprised me the most recently is that in one of these studies, for example, is that the composition, the main components of the air comes from the volatile components of the bodies of the bees, including the workers' bees and also the larvae. And each compound has different properties. And I think it's amazing, actually. And I think there's a lot of factors that contribute to this variation. And I think to develop this area of identifying the components of the hive, more research is required to study those variations. But I also agree that each component is important, including the one from the larvae, and each one of them has different properties. And in the future, perhaps isolating and identifying the properties of each compound is also a pathway to be followed, so we can have a more knowledge about the potentials of this therapy.
Yes, very good, very good. And I see here in the questions in the chat area, one question for Beate and Jürgen: was this therapy, and also for János, of course, was this therapy used only for respiratory diseases, or it was good for some other diseases? Let's hear Beate first. She's a lady. Beate, yes?
Yes, for respiratory tract conditions primarily, but then also like a headache is not a respiratory tract condition, but they found that
headaches,
migraines, for example, that helped very much. If someone has chronic autoimmune, we found patients that really found benefits from breathing the air as well. So it's not just respiratory tract conditions.
Yes.
I'm sure Dr. János can add to this as well.
I'm coming as the last presentation. That will be included.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much again for your presentation, Tiago. It was excellent presentation. And we need you in the future to continue this research together with Dr. Ali Timucin. As he said, he proposed to make this international multi-center study. It will be fantastic, because we need first this biochemical basis of beehive air therapies. Thank you very, very much.
I should say, Stefan, that I mentioned about the clinical trial and ethical committee approval is possible, but without having the analysis of what we are using, it would be almost impossible. But I appreciate and I thank to Tiago for this nice work he did. It is really maybe the most important part of our future projects, that with his analyzed reports, we can go now to further steps.
Yes.
Thank you, Tiago.
Yes, it's the base of the pyramid.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
For me, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm also very interested in collaborate. So let's keep in touch and create a group and
Sure.
make this happen. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now let's give the floor to János for the last presentation today on this section. János is the president of the Hungarian Apitherapy Society, a long-time apitherapy practitioner. Okay, so yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would like to share one thought with you. This is from the World Trade Organization, 1995. and this has that the biggest problem of the bees is that the driving force of the globalization is the man himself, the individual who wants to buy everything at the cheapest. I explain a short story. I had to stay in a hospital for one night, and there came a new patient in our room, and he had blood cancer. I asked him if he had any idea why he got sick. And yes, he replied, I'm a farmer. My illness was caused by spraying. Couldn't you have avoided? I asked him. Yes, there is a variety of wheat which grows faster than the surrounding plants, so there is no weeding. The total cost of this one, if we add the normal seed with the chemicals and the seed, which is a special one without the chemicals, then the cost is 10 forint, which means 27 euro per 1 ton wheat. So this means that this is just the money why they put so much chemicals there. There are other possibilities. Okay, after this one, I will speak about this. A little about me. Stefan mentioned already, I'm a beekeeper. I keep bees, and I work also for the Hungarian Beekeeper Association as member of the control board. And I own the Apis Limited, a small company which manufactures the Apis D and Apis MD. These are two different dilution of bee venom, which sold from USA, Canada, Singapore, EU, and so on. And we have a knowledge network for practitioners who to use a bee venom solution. We are interested on real results, on the real praxis. And as Stefan mentioned, it has a small praxis as well. In my first presentation, I said that we will speak about how to build and beehive houses, beehive and beehive air therapies. Yes, because these are a little different. One, maybe the earliest known is 1938 or something like this, is Dr. Raymond didn't knew, but he had a hive inside the house. And of course, if the hive inside the house, you can never close it as close as airtight. So he had already some of the volatiles in his office. And Dr. Beck used also the beehive inside the praxis, but we do not have picture about that one. Okay, bee house. I know an early application after the Second World War that soldiers who had problems with the lung, because that was terrible, the whole war, and they came home and they used this, but we don't have any documents about this. This is just like said. What we know is 1978, Theodor Yakimowicz, yes, you remember the name, in Vienna, in Austria. That's why I call this kind of system the Austrian system. And in 1982 was a Mahonon in Russia for cardiac problems and heart problems, who was using the beehive. Okay, so just to remember our loved professor, he visited my beehive air house. You see by the number 7, which is the number of the slide, here is standing our friend. Unfortunately, he could not be with us now. I really miss him. So I say this is the energetic system. So this is used in Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and I have one in Hungary. 4 hives. I organized my presentation like more for the beekeepers, because beekeepers would like to get also some information how they can use direct something. This is not an application for a medical approval, but this is very, very convenient. In Russia, it will be used, and in Belarus, in hospitals. I have seen several hospitals, they have inside this hive and then they are on the hive. And to the question, what kind of, yes, bronchitis, asthma, allergy. Allergy is are well connected to the lung, mostly because it is the pollen allergy mostly which can be used. And of course, we experience depression. This is also very, very good. Okay. This is one early man in Ukraine, Balash. His invention was in 2000. He didn't make too big deal. He just put 4 hives and a little box on that. And he had a stroke. This is another disease. In the time of the stroke, after the stroke, he was not able to move. But he was using this facility during the whole year, early March till October, November, till it was warm enough to sleep there. And at the time he was there, on the picture you see with Theodore Cherboulier, he was there presenting to his home with a group from Apimundia, the small group. And he was moving quite okay. Of course, you can see that he had a stroke, but not as much as it was in the beginning. At the beginning, he was very hard able to move. It took long time. This is not a small disease. On this picture, you see the Hüttner. This is he was also who used the beehive air in Austria. And this was the first presentation of him. And of course, we use also this kind of Austrian system in Hungary. You see here this pipe. This is not a heated pipe, but we use this pipe only if the weather is over 30. Yes. And generally we say, this is for our beekeeper friends, we do not use below 15 grade. Centigrade. And there are machines in Romania, Canada, France, Italy, everywhere in the world. You see some early versions from Hüttner, 1987. That time it was a huge secret what is on the hive. So it was covered not to see the very big invention. Okay. I'm very glad that Jürgen is here because this is his machine. You have everything inside, and very important that the pipe is heated, as was mentioned before, because if you use it by low temperatures, the temperature inside the hive is 34 degrees, and the moisture content could be up to 90%. And we know the curve. If the temperature goes down, then the same amount of water in the air will go out and will condensate. And that's why it's very important to keep the temperature as high as possible from the hive till the man. If you use medical machines for apnoe in the night, these are also heated pipes because this is the only way to do this. So some Hungarian examples. We made a 6-year course. I remember one course we made also in Turkey. I had the machine of Jürgen Schmidgen with me, and I explained that time also already that this is a medical device. It can be used in a hospital. This was very important. Already that time, I think it was 2 years ago. This house is using the Russian system. What you see here, I get the pointer, laser pointer. What you see here, these hives are from outside. Why is it important? Because there is nothing inside, yes? No bees inside. In my house, you will see I have the beehive inside, but I built it mostly for the time I am there and for the family members, so I can get the bees out and after that to work with this. This one has 2 beds and nothing comes inside, okay? This is another example. He made also this territorium close that the people are not able to go through the flying way of the bees. If they are coming to 2 meters, then they are flying away. And of course, it is possible to come here and from the window to look the hives. We will see some more. This is the owner of the house. He has a lot of events and coming people, and it is full. You will see full of life. And this is a kind of social area as well. And he was one of the first in the first course, 2015, what we made in Hungary. You see here from the other side, three professional windows, the small flying plates, and from both sides it is closed that the people are not able to go on a dangerous area. Okay, it is fully professionally heat isolated. Why? Because in the summertime it could be very hot, and this is not good. And for winter time it is also not good if you have very big difference of the temperature, because we have the experience that the bees could die very soon if they digest more. So we need also for winter a good isolation. Okay, inside they made also a small observation hive. Okay, and they don't use the Russian kind of system. They just open the top of this hive. And of course, there are problematic children. The children are playing there around. They have very good time to spend there. They're playing and they breathing. There are 12 bee families inside. It is very, very strong, the air. It is full saturated, the air. And of course, besides yoga, it is possible to get a night there. If everything would be open, nobody would sleep, but only 2, they say it's okay. And of course, they play little for the bees, how they find which one is their point. And also for the children, it's very interesting to have such angels sitting around and waiting for the children. The building of another house in Hungary, it's near Austrian border. You see, this is a kind standard house which is possible to buy in such shops. So it is not very complicated. And inside they could use different side of the house. The bees are flying out, and this could be very normal and nice. They use also, they experience that the wax has also these very nice volatile compounds, and they put some wax plates from their own wax on the wall. There is one person who made the whole house with wax. This is also very interesting experience. Another man in Hungary made a small house just for the family. It's a very small garden. They put inside big window, and inside they wanted to have a huge bed with 4 families. How is it possible? They made a half-sized. So in the hay, I don't know how to show here, like they made half size. It means that the bee family goes an horizontal way. Yeah. And this way they get 140 big bed. It is very good. Outside, it is possible to look from inside, but this is with mesh closed. And they handle the bees generally outside because they don't have possibility to open the window on the side. On the top, they have some windows. And he made a technique that he could move out the beehive and work with the beehive and then put back, and that's it. This is my house. I was thinking very much on the energetic part too. So this is standing on 6 screws and huge windows, because I said, okay, if somebody is standing, should see the nature. If somebody is sitting, should see the nature. And this gives the height of the window and the place of the window. And of course, because I wanted to see a release of stress, should see only nature, green, and plants, and so on. This is these hot devices with one of my sons, and this is the bed from the side, what you can see. Okay, and there is a Hungarian doctor who was working with in Germany. He was working, and he made statistic how the diseases are developing. He experienced quite a lot, but I think it is necessary to have more result scientifically. What is to remember? First of all, we need healthy bees. And the control of the bees is more frequent than a normal case, because there are illnesses of the bees which are dangerous for the human, for us. There was 2 persons who died because of breathing the beehive air in Hungary. It was stone brood. The stone brood has a fungi which is able to multiply in the lung, and this family heard about beehive air. Every time they open the beehive, immediately poke the head inside and then breathe inside deep, deep, deep breaths. And it was not good, because they didn't check for, these are the 2 fungal diseases, the calc brood and the stone brood, yes? And we work like that. I have seen in the praxis that this is the best way. There is an apitherapist who describes, who analyzes what is the situation, how weak is the patient, how we are working with the patient. And then this was also a question. There is a regular treatment method. We use 3 times 10 minutes or 2 times 15 minutes with the machine of Jürgen Schmidgen. And then we make 15-minute break, and then we make again this session, 15-minute break, and this 30-minute again. This altogether makes 2 hours, and in normal cases we use these 2 hours for the person. If it is a serious disease, then we suggest maximal morning, in the evening, 1-2 hour session is much. The people has to be free. They want to be not only to deal with the disease, they would like to live as well. So usually we do it 1-2 hour session. Okay, and it is very important. By every precaution could happen one bee sting, and if we don't know the allergic state of the person for bee allergy, bee venom allergy, then we have to have first aid kit on the site, and who is there as a supervisor should know exactly how to use this. Okay, I have seen 3 anaphylactic shock in my life, in my praxis, by people who was not allergic. After 6 months of doing, it was a local gap of the person. It was Friday afternoon. He was very, very tired and wanted to have 5 stings. And I said, well, I don't think so, because you are very tired. After the first one, he began to develop the systematic reactions, and I had to handle the last part with the EpiPen, because for the first 2 emergency situation, which is allowed in Hungary for emergency stuff, was no reaction. Okay, my last slide. You see a wise man. He's having beehive therapy, getting in the energetic field. He gets the music, the sounds, the vibration of the bees, and the volatiles, of course. And there is peace. No ringing, nothing. The people who was attending my first speech was seeing this picture already, because originally I made one big presentation, and then later I knew that, oh, I have to split it into 2. So this was my short presentation, and any questions I'm ready to answer, and I'm quite sure that all other people are ready to do this.
Excellent presentation, János. My first question comes from me. You mentioned about that 2 cases of deaths in Hungary of people which were breathing directly from the beehive.
Yes.
So it was not this system from Jürgen Schmidgen with the pollen filter.
No,
Because-
no. But it was not allergy. It was later on, it came out that this was a kind of asparagus.
Yeah. It was an infection.
Yeah, it was an infection from the spores of this stone brood. Stone brood is a fungal disease of the bees, but it can multiply also in the human lung.
Yes.
And they didn't had any filter there.
Oh yes, this was the let's say the mistake. Now,
Yes,
because,
and they didn't know that the family is ill. That's the
yes,
other one.
Yes. Okay, very good. One question I see here for all of you is, can a beehive air therapy can stress the bees in some way? What do you think?
Yes, should I answer the question?
Yes, please.
Okay.
First.
As I meet Jürgen, he explained me why is very special his machine. If you have a small box, it takes air only from the middle, and usually in the middle there is the family. Then they try to put some cover here that only from the side. But if you have this hoop on the top, yes, then and Jürgen, you are here left from me now. Jürgen measured how is the circulation inside the hive to have an optimal way not to disturb the families. And that's why it is important not to disturb the families. And it is also not loud. It is in the night, it is possible to sleep with this machine. It is
Yes.
very, very loudless.
Yes.
What do you think, Beate?
Very well explained, really. That's why you have that control unit on the top that prevents the noise level, and the hood is developed in the size as it is, so it goes through all the different alleyways in between where the honeycombs are very evenly, so the bees absolutely don't get disturbed. And we measured that. So we measured what happens before we noticed the bees were getting a bit agitated, a bit aggressive when we were using other devices. Hence, we needed to do something different because we don't want to do beehive air if it harms the bees. So it needs to be beneficial for the bees as well as the human. That's really the
And another point, if the bees gets aggressive, they release bee venom.
Yes.
The volatile parts of the bee venom makes the people who do not get stung makes allergic. Not in one day, but we don't know about the extract. There is a study in Sweden which proved that all family members of the beekeepers who do not get stung but get contact with the volatile parts of the honey and the hive and everything, they get with 90% possibility allergic to bee venom after 5 years. So if you don't know why, but this is you have to be stung. This is the normal way. And if you don't get stung, don't inhale bee venom. That's why we need quiet, don't disturb bee families.
Yes.
And I think also you have to, this just shows you can't think, oh, beehive air therapy, I'm a beekeeper, this sounds easy, I can do that, no problem. It does not work like that. You work with life, you work with living bees, and you work with humans. And if you do something wrong, if you don't do a risk assessment beforehand, and if you don't adapt to the requirements that they are, you are liable. And in some cases, with a lot of money, if something goes wrong, if someone that you don't know you treat and something goes wrong, you will be liable for doing the mistake in the first place. So it's very important you study apitherapy properly. You really understand how beehive air works. You do the proper training and with the right people, you learn learn from others who already have therapy centers open, and then you start. Do it the right way.
Yes. We are pretty late. Just one more idea about the how not to disturb the bees. I do not recommend the system from Russia and Ukraine with the people sleeping on top of the beehives directly, because even if there are some supports, mechanical support, one person which is there like 80 kilogram body weight and underneath the small teeny bees, and this person moves on the bed. So there are vibrations which are coming to the bees. They feel the big elephant which is upstairs. So like Janos showed in one of his houses, big houses, it is the bed near the beehives. So the bed here, this here. So everybody is respected, not the elephant on top of the bees. Yes, what do you think, Ali?
Very interesting, Stefan. This topic is quite interesting, and as I said, this time no presenter from Turkey.
This time.
For this time, I have already 2 students making search on this subject as a master thesis. So I believe that they will finish their research and they will be the presenter candidates for the next Congress. But as I proposed, we may have altogether multi-center research, clinical trials, together with Tiago, Beatty, and Janos, all together with you, and we can collect the data, and it can be very good scientific study. I understand that in any case, we can say safety is the first issue. How do you say in your language, Stefan?
Or in German, safety.
Do you say primum non nocere?
Yes, this is in Latin, yes. Primum non nocere.
First, do not harm. So at least I think we can say that these hives should be 100% organic without any chemical components, right? I mean, for anything, no chemical pesticides or medicines that was used for the illnesses of the bees. It should be 100% organic, so that the patients will not inhale chemicals.
Yes.
So,
only amitraz.
Sorry, Janos, we didn't hear you.
Even not amitraz. It means that
amitraz,
the chemicals what you use for the beehive, even if it's organic acid,
diseases.
you have to be now the extraction time. So
so no chemicals, no bee diseases that can be risky for human beings, as Janos mentioned, and we have to take the safety issues, prevention issues. Well, I thank you all for this nice presentation, and I thank to translators. I mean, they are showing great performance. We can move to the meeting room for round table, and we can continue there. I don't want to occupy more our beloved translators. They must be really tired, but we can continue. Everybody, all the participants and speakers and the everybody can move to round table room, and we can continue there. Anybody who would like to socialize, we can socialize there and chat.